Albert, for joining me today and giving me and everyone that's going to be watching, this video, the sense of hope by you sharing your story about how you have successfully transitioned back into the community, utilizing the resources that have been made available to you in the greater Orange County area, and really just giving that message of hope. So can you tell me a little bit about yourself, how you grew up and how you became justice involved?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Like Megan said, my name is Albert. And a little bit about myself. I'm gonna start out kind of where I'm at right now. I'm 20 months out of prison. I paroled 20 months ago after serving 23 years out of a 2 life sentences. My full sentence was 2 life sentences plus 17 years. And that's a little bit about a little background about my where I'm at right now and the incarceration length. Um, I grew up in the city of Long Beach in a very underserved and violent and over policed and even I would say over punished community. And the reason I say over punished, or the reason I use the word over punished, is because that's how I felt. That's how I felt I was being punished for being poor. I felt I was being punished for not having resources or for not being able to ask for resources. And I felt punished because the school that I went to and the authorities around me wouldn't provide any advice, or I felt as if that mentorship that adults have were given to me.
So do you feel like there was like a certain time in your life where you really started to realize that, now looking back, obviously, that when you first started experiencing that trauma, any trauma you've experienced, and how that
Yeah,
may have
so the trauma the trauma that I experienced came very very early on in my childhood. Um, when I was 3 years old, me and my family had migrated from Mexico into the United States. So perhaps there's even some trauma with that relocation, or that stressful relocation. And shortly after we arrived, my father he had a DUI accident and died in it. And so at that time I was 4 years old. It was a couple of months after we had arrived into the United States. So we didn't know how to fend for ourselves. My mom, being a single parent, didn't know how to fend for herself. She didn't know the language, and became homeless for a period of time when I was younger. So that just added more trauma to a traumatic experience. And and that brought on a lot of insecurity, anxiety, and I didn't know how to ask for questions. I didn't know how to reason the situations that we were going through. So I just made up these questions to myself, and I made up the answers to myself upon assumptions of a little child. Um, and like I said, we were homeless for a bit. We ended semi-locating to the community that I just mentioned earlier in Long Beach. And that's how I grew up. I grew up going to school as a ESL student, and going to school as an ESL student in the mid '80s. Um, there wasn't a wholesome teaching. Uh, there wasn't a wholesome teaching approach, and so since the teachers wouldn't understand my learning style, and I had a hard time grasping what was being taught to me,
Mhm.
I was deemed dumb. And so the teacher put me in just that, a dummy table, as she called it. And this dummy table was me and a couple of other children from the school that had similar trauma from their childhood. Um, so that really turned me off from learning or teachers, because I was told I was dumb, and unfortunately I believed it. I believed I was dumb. I believed that I wasn't able to grasp concepts. Um, and so I was left to grow up in this school year with my fellow classmates that were coming from similar backgrounds as I was. Um, I go into high school. I'm sorry. I go into junior high, and I don't want to go. School has been a bad experience. School is not fun. I'm not learning anything. I feel all I do at school is worry about my mom, worry about my brothers, worry about my I have three siblings that I shared my household with, so I worry about them. I worry about if we still have that place. Are we gonna move? Mm, so I start going to junior high, and I start getting picked on. That makes worse. That makes school even worse. So I start getting picked on, and then I learned early on that I have to find a way not to be picked on, because when I was getting picked on, I would feel humiliated. I would feel unworthy. I did this. I felt like that initiated with the absence of my dad would resurface, and then I would really be left wondering if I was really worth the time of anybody, the time of the teachers, the time of my students. I mean, my fellow students that wouldn't give me the time or just pick on me. And they would pick on me for just small stuff that now is nothing, right? But as a child, you want to appease and you want to be fit in. So they would
Yeah.
tease me about my short stature or my inexpensive clothes. Um, and I just feel outed. I just feel marginalized. So in me trying to figure out an answer to that, I would pay attention a lot to the neighborhood kids, or not even the neighborhood kids, but the neighborhood. Mm, I'm trying to come up with a name for it.
To me, it sounds like you're looking for a community. You're looking for somewhere to fit in. You were trying to find, adult figures, to uh, fill, maybe that perspective void or give you that sense of confidence.
And
Um,
and as a matter of fact, when I remember when I was shortly thereafter when I started junior high, my mom she remarried, and to what you're saying, you're absolutely right. So I now have a stepfather per se, and I remember looking up and being ready, being ready for his discipline, being ready for his guidance, being ready for his his mentorship. And when that didn't come, when I saw him come and go as he willed, and not taking, he was able to make decisions at the house without being in the house, and just coming and going as he pleased. So that caused a little bit more of frustration and resentment towards adults also. So by that time, just these adults that are coming into my life just are hurting me. And so first there's my dad. He's left me. My mom isn't telling me what's going on. My uncles, my aunts aren't stepping up. My teachers are telling me I'm dumb. This guy that's supposed to be coming into my life as a role model is not caring at all. So I was really disappointed by the adults. And community. And then that's when I started looking out towards the street, and these guys that are on the street are walking around confident. They are walking around confident. They're walking on the street, and people are respecting them. And so I would look at them, and I made up my mind that I want to be that also. I want to be looked at like that. I don't want to be weak, or what I thought was weak. I don't want to be deemed weak. I want to be praised. I want to be, accepted. And so I started paying attention to that a lot. Um,
Do you think that subconsciously, you were searching for someone to be that leader, that adult figure, that positivity like within your life, and that was kind of what led you to, I don't want to say like idolize, like the gang or that sort of segment of your community, but they filled that void for you, and you saw that they were confident, like what you were saying. You saw that they had a sense of community, and they were willing to kind of take you in, and kind of, even though it wasn't necessarily the right things that they were showing you, you were still getting some sort of quote unquote leadership, right? That you felt like um you fit in, and that you could make an impact, right? Because that's what I'm hearing, that you were experiencing as a child.
yeah, I mean, by me not being deemed weak, so I started obsessing over that, and um, I started moving and gravitating towards that behavior, and eventually I got my identity from them. Um, I felt I had no identity, so I was looking for an identity, not only of a mentor figure, but I was ready to be a man. And so what I saw, and the behaviors that I saw, um, was what defined a man at that time. And so I just took on that model behavior, and I started talking like them. I started acting like them. I started dressing like them until I became them. I became them, and uh, after getting bullied in junior high, um, I started fighting back because I knew that the fellas in the neighborhood would do just that. So
Hmm.
actually, I was scared, but nobody could know that, right? I was scared to fight. I was scared to stick up for myself, and I knew that nobody was gonna come in and stand up for me. My stepdad wasn't sure. My dad wasn't. Nobody was gonna step up for me. So I had to work up a courage, and in my mind, kind of appease these figures, these male figures that I wanted to be like. And so I behaved accordingly, and I displayed aggression at a young age in junior high. And then I got noticed. I got noticed by them, and I would start getting praised. Like, whoa, look at this guy. He's smart, but he's a tough one, and he's not gonna be a push one. So that would just fill me with confidence, and so I kept up that behavior until the age of 16, when I joined the gang. And I joined the gang because it felt as if I had finally somebody that was going to step up for me, and give me that sense of security. And in me wanting to avoid problems, or these problems that I was having in school with getting bullied and fighting back, I thought that was going to alleviate that, but it just turned out that I just inherited a whole bunch of enemies now, quote unquote enemies, through gang membership. And so it was kind of too late per se, because I was already involved in the gang. I was already committed. I was already getting applauded for and high fived, for being aggressive, for being out there, for pushing the line. At that time, I wanted to be part of that crowd so bad that that it didn't matter if I got in trouble, if I got in trouble by my mom, by the police, the authorities, school. It didn't matter because I wanted to be part of that crowd, no matter what. And I made up my mind that I was gonna be part of that crowd. Yes, I became aware that this new enemies per se were coming up, but I didn't care after that because to me the being accepted and me feeling not weak was worth all that. I had encounters with the law. We had encounters with the law, but that didn't discourage me from doing things that would elevate my status in the gang. And I remember from very early on, um, I started displaying a behavior of and we could say it was behavior that was a cry out for help, or crying out for some kind of attention. I remember got caught shoplifting at the age of 9, and I was shoplifting with my friends at that time. We were just kids on the street, and I remember getting caught that time, and I remember the officer calling my mom to come pick me up, or else I was going to get taken to a juvenile detention center. And my mom did show up, but my mom did not say one word to me when she went to pick me up. She just signed the paperwork and just walked out. Um,
So then rather than address the issue, your mom just took the stance of just ignoring it altogether.
right, yeah, right, and
Do you feel like that made an impact for you when it came to like feeling like, no one is trying to um show you how it should be, like show you like being that good adult figure in your life, like she
right.
wasn't really trying to lead you in the right direction.
So I had no consequence, right? And not only did I didn't have a consequence, but there was no attempt to correct me. So I came up to the conclusion that it didn't matter how bad I acted. There wasn't going to be people to kind of guide me. So I just stopped doing things to appease adults or to try to get their attention to help me. I and I remember shortly thereafter that incident, I knew because at that time when that incident happened, I was very angry at the cop, and I was angry at the cop because he called my mom and he embarrassed me that way. So I'm just everything is on the cop. If it wouldn't have been for the cop catching me, I wouldn't have been embarrassed. I would have never get been caught. My mom would have never just turned her back on me in disgrace. I felt, and so I blame the cop. So again, there's an authority figure, there's an adult figure, and I'm uh, um, just holding resentment towards all authority figures. And shortly thereafter, I made up my mind that I was not gonna ask for help from adults, and I was not gonna let adults into my life because I did not want to be controlled by adults. My mom, the police officer, my counselor, my teachers, anybody. So this very warped stance against authority began growing in me to when I do join a gang, I subscribe completely to the street code, and the street code is just against authority, against any establishment, and I lean into that. I lean into it because just like you stated, I felt like there was no correcting, nobody correcting me, so I kind of felt like okay, it was just a natural path to take. I felt at that time.
Yeah, because why would it matter, right? The only person that you felt cared about you was you, and then you look to try to find more people to care about you, care about or that you felt would care about you, and that's where you found, kind of that home, right, within the gang. So,
And and initially it felt good. It felt good because I was being praised, because I was receiving self-esteem from them, their acceptance, and me wanting to appease the crowd. I would do things and walk in front of the crowd and be the first one to show up.
someone was taking an interest in you, and they
Right,
saw that you had something of value to bring to the table. And they're only looking at a limited scope, right? That would
right,
benefit them, within the gang, but you hadn't had the opportunity to feel fully realize your full potential,
right,
outside of that, and channeling it in a positive way, because there wasn't those sort of figures in your life, at that time, like you would think, right? That school, right
right,
now, you would
right,
think that in school, this is where you would get your counselors or your teachers that would see you acting a certain way, and if they took an interest in you, just saying, hey, what's going on, do you
right,
need access to resources, this is things that we hope as society is happening. But we can clearly see that for you growing up, where you grew up, the neighborhood you grew up, that wasn't available, or wasn't available to you at that time. So this was basically, the option that you felt like you were given.
right. And it's right on when you speak of the only sliver of myself that was presented, right? So my potential growth did get stunted, and I only showed that phase, right, of machismo, of daredevil, of the down guy. So I was only able to exercise that part of me, when in fact there was so much that, like you said, counselors could have reached, and the whole mind that didn't get explored. I was just left with the behavior that I was thought I needed to display at the time to continue being liked.
Hmm.
And the bad thing about that is that with an act that was being praised, um, I would have to come back the next day or the next couple of days with a even bigger act. And so in that trying to prove myself, constant need to prove myself, and prove myself by upping my last behavior. I became callous, and I became desensitized um, to the feelings of other people, and I became very very detached from the people's emotions. I didn't stop to think, like, how could this affect them, and how how do they feel. I became very selfish, and just me being praised or accepted is all that mattered. And I didn't think about the people that I was hurting. I didn't think about the people's that that I was stealing from. I didn't think anything of it. I just kept on doing that, and that behavior escalated to worse and worse. So with the escalation, um, it it ultimately arrived at me being arrested. Um, Being arrested in 1998, I got arrested for a gang-involved shooting, and I got convicted a year later of it. And so now I'm convicted of a gang-related shooting with two attempted murders. Um, and I got sentenced to, like I said earlier, 2 life sentences, plus 17 years. So at that time, At that time, I'm 21, and I go into the prison system, and since I'm young and I'm smart, and I'm down in my gang's eyes, I get embraced. I get embraced by them, and I come in as a lifer right away. So
You've got nothing to lose.
I'm there. I'm just one of the fellas now, and this is home. So I'm not taking into consideration the damage that has done to the people that have been hurt, or not only in this life crime, but other crimes that my past has. And again, that talks to like selfishness, right? I was only feeling bad about me, like, like the system has me here. The system is built to so that I could be here, and the system has been successful in separating my family. So again, there I am blaming, and I taking into account what I have done
Mhm.
to destroy not only my immediate family's life, but other people's lives. And so that's happening in the recesses or in the secrets of my heart. I cannot display that because again, the fellows are gonna think that I'm weak.
Mhm.
Um, so I have to come forward with the identity that I project, which is a fearless, badass gang member. And so I start doing things that to be done in prison, and I don't change. I continue. Like I said, I'm one of the fellas. I'm pretty sure, like, you could just imagine the things that go into prison. You have riots, you have violence, you have drug deals, you have uh, um, assaults, and I'm not gonna get into detail into those things because I don't want to take away from the message that I'm trying to convey. But I get involved. I get involved. I become one of the fellas, and I'm not caring for anything. I'm in, and this is where I'm gonna die.
So, as you're, that you're sentenced to 2 life terms, right? And you're going through the motions basically. You know that you have to be one of the fellows. You can't display any signs of weakness. So you just continually feed into what you have to do in order to protect yourself.
Right.
Just kind of have to embrace the environment in which you're in. So how long until you know how many years in until you started like seeing like other people like while you're incarcerated doing something different? And then when did you make that choice where you started to kind of explore something different than what you had been exposed to, not just as a child but as a young adult, and um so on.
So uh, when I go into prison, since I have no ties to the community and my life is in no positive direction, and I have no wife and I have no kids, and all of that gets charted up, all of that gets accounted for, and then
Yeah.
your custody level
accounted
is
for
set.
accounted for like while you're inside, like from the gang side with the fellas? Are you talking about like with the prison guards and things like that?
Right, with custody, they want to know where to set you. They want to know where to house you. So how much of a risk are you? How much are you involved? If like there's there's different kind of people getting arrested. So they chart up and take into account what kind of lifestyle you were living out here. And I was living one of the worst lifestyles, so my custody level was very, very high. And so that's what I mean by that. So my custody level was high. Um, the highest security prison, and we're on lockdown. We're on lockdown for 23 months of my initial stay in prison. So while I'm on lockdown, there's no leaving the cell. Um, there's no canteen. There's no visits. There's nothing. There's just on lockdown. There's a lot of violence going on, and again, this gang involvement, riots is happening. So it's 23 months lockdown. During that lockdown, I read. I read a lot. That's all I have access to is books. I just came in. I don't have a TV. I don't have a radio. All I have is books. And so I read, and then I start talking to the guys in there, and some of the guys have been there for a long time, and I start seeing that these guys are caring, right? And that sounds kind of off because now I'm in prison and these guys are caring. But I mean, what I mean by caring is that, again, I'm one of the guys, so I'm being offered food, I'm being offered books, I'm being offered um, support, and it turns out that a lot of these guys are just like me, the guys that I grew up with, also fatherless or without mentors, and they too have made mistakes. So I come to the realization that mm, maybe we're just unguided, but that thought just comes and goes. So this is the start of something starting to grow, and the reason that was fought was because it's soft, right? To care is soft, like nobody cares for me. Why am I gonna care? And then again, that little machismo comes on, and again, you have to put your heart shell on, and like, I can't believe I thought that, and I would never say something like that. What's expected of you, like, that men don't cry, so you're not gonna shed a tear ever. Um, and then you believe those things, like, just be ready for whatever, things like that you hear, and then you're there, you're ready. So you don't give yourself permission to have these natural thoughts of looking at around and say, hey, we're all being a lot of us have been misguided. Um, that comes and it goes. Um, and then I start seeing my mom visit me and taking these long trips over there, and my little brother needing me. And I start believing that that I'm not a bad person, that I've just been misguided, and I don't know where to start. I don't know where to start to explore that. I don't know who to go to. The fellas around me aren't gonna want to hear it. We're all tough, we don't talk to each other in such manners. So what I do is I start really exploring myself, and with that self exploration, I start reading things that I'm attracted to. Yeah, so what I started going into was like autobiographies. I remember reading like Tony Dungy. He's a football coach, and he has this very famous book called Mentorship, Leaders. That's how he talks about. He talks about the family being like a football team, all working together. So I started reading things like that. I started reading any autobiographies, Malcolm X. There's also any autobiography I could get a hold of. I'm reading, and then I see that a lot of times with reading, a lot of people have changed their minds, and then I start questioning. And I've always liked learning. Um, I believe, unfortunately, I believe the teacher when she said I was dumb. So when I like learning, I can't show that I like learning because I'm dumb. Because I'm dumb, and because I'm in a gang, and I can't show or say what I'm learning. because I'm not supposed to be doing that. I'm supposed to be dumb, and two, I'm supposed to be this ruthless gang member that is not attracted to any kind of knowledge. And so I read in secret. I remember one time I came out for a shower. So we have a makeshift shower, a table out in the room that was a makeshift shower, and that's where everybody would throw their books when they were done with it. And that's where you went out to the shower and picked up a book. And there's one time that I went out there was only one book left. It was a thick book. I didn't even look at the title of it. I just picked it up because that was the only thing to read. I took it back to my cell, and it was a GED book. It was a GED preparation book, and I started reading it. And I started like putting these sentences together, and playing with the math, and I started really getting into the book. 3 months into reading this book, I had a crazy thought of going through and actually getting my GED. But then again, I just automatically dismissed it because, again, I'm dumb. I believed this teacher a long time ago that I'm dumb, and what are the fellas gonna think? Right? I'm going weak here, and so I put it aside, and it kept on gnawing at me. It kept on revisiting my mind until it was either a crazy thing to do or a courage buildup. But I walked into the education department and I signed up for a GED test, and I took my GED test the following week, and I passed it. And I passed it, and then so things started, maybe unbeknownst to me, started coming apart, kind of like loosening up.
So you started to feel better about yourself, and
Yeah,
basically you just disproved what that teacher or teachers, right, made you feel growing up and said to you that you were dumb, right?
yeah.
And then making you feel like, hey, I can do this, right? So you're breaking the norms that you have created or other people have created and put you in that box. So I'm sure that that made you feel uncomfortable.
That made me feel again. I started questioning myself, like, wait a minute, they have it wrong. And I remember walking away from the GED pass and saying, even boasting to myself, like, wow, I did that without going to school. I did that by just grabbing a book and doing it myself. So that was a really self-confidence booster. I was high on my self-confidence, and but I put the book away and I accomplished that, but then I went back to the prison life. And so that speaks to how sometimes we start off in a good trajectory, or we have a good day, or we have a good decision even, but we slip up and we go back to what we know and what's comfortable. And at that time, I wasn't ready to follow that education plan all the way through. I went back to prison life, and again, I just became one of the fellas again. It's scary. It was change, and it was scary, and so I resisted change because it was so scary. Because like, holy shit, I'm smart. Like, what can I potentially do? And at that time, it was a scary thing to do, because I didn't know what being smart looked like, or what how can that be handled. So I was honestly, and I could say now, but like I said, at the time you couldn't voice it, but I was scared. I was scared to change. I was scared of the possibilities within me, and I wasn't willing to change yet, um, because I succumbed to the fear of change. And in that manner, I went back to what I was comfortable, to where I knew my place, and I knew, that I was gonna be comfortable day in and day out, and I knew how to live there. And but I continued with my curious mind, and curious questions, and I continued reading, and it's maybe 7 years later, about 7 years later, um, I started going by a college room, a where they had college studies, and I had shorter ways to my cell, but I would always choose that route. And looking back on it, I just wanted to be near like some knowledge. I just wanted to walk by it, and so I'm circling it, and I was attracted every time I look forward to crossing that door, and I felt the pull, but I wasn't brave enough to go ahead and take that step. And not only was I not brave enough, but I didn't believe in myself. I didn't believe that I could actually walk into that room. I didn't have the confidence to walk in and say I want to go to college, because that was a thing that you just didn't never do in where I come from, in my neighborhood. That was unheard of. I walked in there, and I signed up myself for a college course, and I took it, and I passed it. I passed it, and I liked it, and I felt like, wow, okay, so this
And what
is
class was that?
this was an introduction to becoming a successful student.
Okay.
So that class taught me how to map out your brain, and remember things, little learning strategies, note
Yeah.
taking, strategies in reading a textbook. Um,
How to take like
uh,
a test, like kind of like testing kind of a trick, tips and tricks, that kind of
right.
stuff.
Yeah, like an intro to college, intro to, like note taking, like these little tricks of the trade, and study habits, how important sleep is. So it's an introduction to what I. And I'm thinking, when I'm taking that class, I'm thinking, hey, this sounds like if they're preparing me for something. Mm, and it was, and it came up to be that I was getting prepared to launch into academia. I passed this class, and again I felt this boost in my self-esteem, and I signed up for another one, and then two, and then three, and then I was just passing my classes. At that time, mm, at that time, things are changing a little bit in prison. Um, things aren't. I don't know if they were changing so much as me getting older in there. So now I'm older. Now I'm a little bit wiser. Now I have sort of established myself in prison, and so
How many years into your sentence are you at that time?
this is 15 years into my sentence.
Okay.
This is in 2015. I got my GED in 2004,
Okay.
and it took all the way to 2014 when I started taking college courses. Um, 15 years later, I'm already mature enough to stand for myself, and just know my way. And at that time, I was taking college courses and openly. Yeah, I didn't have to hide or anything, but I just still felt like if I was being, like if I was gonna be judged as being smart equal being weak.
Mm.
And so I knew that was the stance of a lot of people, but and it used to be mine also. But I was already outgrowing a lot of things, and
Well, you're
but I'm
starting
still
to get exposed to different, you already had been reading, you're reading different books, right? Then you started taking all, these different courses, these classes, working towards getting your college degrees. And so your mind is opening up as you're learning, you're being exposed to more information. So you're able to incorporate different, principles, different, thoughts, different, ideologies, things like that, and know that you have the power to make your own choices, to have your own
right.
thoughts. right? Even though you're inside, doesn't matter. You can still have your own thoughts. You can still make your own decisions.
Right. And so that awakening is gonna eventually cross with my lifestyle. Um, and so there comes a crossroad, um, and it needs to be addressed by me. It needs to be addressed by me, but then again, I'm afraid. I'm afraid of change. I like this. I like this new education because my whole worldview is now different, and and I now critically think, and I question. But then I'm also uh, I'm also a documented prison gang member, and you don't become a documented prison gang member just by being there. Um, so I'm kind of straddling the fence. I'm at this crossroads, and I need to make a decision of what it is that I'm gonna do. Um, the gang has taken me in. The gang has been quote unquote good to me, um, but bad, the worst thing that could be. So it's a complexity. It's a whole paradox going on in my head. And then education, what does that look like? If I go with education, am I gonna be successful? Am I gonna flunk out? What happens when I fail out of school? I'm a believer that if we don't make a decision, the decision will be made for us. And so a decision was made for me in the way of um 2015. There was a riot, a race riot, and I chose to be involved in it. And I chose to be involved with it because I felt an obligation. My misplaced loyalty um, made me feel as if I had an obligation to join in that riot. And I remember when I did join, I went into that riot half-hearted. I was just had barely started the summer semester, and I'm thinking about like, man, I'm gonna miss out on my due date. So looking back on that now, I knew where I was, but then again, that misplaced loyalty had me making this decision, and so I'm in that seg. I'm in that seg, and I'm thinking, double thinking things, questioning a lot, and I don't know where I'm gonna be at next. Um, I get out the hole, I get out at seg, and um, with my growth, I I look for a couple of guys that we had the riot with, and I'm gonna go apologize. I'm gonna go apologize, and I do, and I apologize to one of them in particular because he was my neighbor. So we used to have small talk, just we just neighborly talk, and he was familiar. So I go up to him and I go, "Hey man, there's no this wasn't personal, man. It was just business, politics. What are you gonna do?" And he understood all that. He understood all that. He said it was fine, but the only thing that bothered him, and the only thing that he felt sad about, was that the day that we got into a riot, his little girl had got run over, and later on that day passed away, and he wasn't able to talk to her, check up on her, or see about her. And that struck me. That really struck me. And so I felt bad. I felt really bad. And so I saw that with a different perspective. Um, and then since I was able to see that with a different perspective, I started seeing other things with different perspective. um, the guys that I assaulted in prison, I started seeing with a different perspective. The people out here I that I victimized, I started seeing a different perspective, and and I knew I was wrong. But again, I didn't know I didn't know who to go to. I didn't know who to approach. I didn't know where to start. And I knew that if I didn't change in my heart, I knew that I was going to die in prison. Other signs could be good, and a good sign that happened at that time was that riot that triggered or rewoke empathy in me. And shortly thereafter, a commissioner comes to see me, and he goes, "Hey, this new bill is coming out. We're looking at people that qualify for this bill, and you're one of them. You qualify, but your behavior in here is just telling us that you don't want to leave. So what are you gonna do?" And as a criminal, right away, I said I'm gonna change. Um, that I had nothing to do with. Just I just got involved because of his excuses, and so he told me that the bill had changed. The SB 260. I benefit from the bill 260. If you were 23 and under before you got convicted of a crime, you were they were gonna take you back and be deemed as a juvenile. And so, as a juvenile, you're gonna be given that the highest sentence on your sentence, in which mine was double life plus 7. But if you take all those enhancements, it was just one life, and I had already completed that amount of time, so I was eligible for parole right there that day. However, with my behavior, I I was just gonna be like looked at even more and more and more. So I didn't qualify right away. I needed to show up. I needed to prove that I was able to conduct myself, not only conduct myself but change. And then so these things were already getting fostered. These things were already growing up in my heart, in my mind. And then that push of hey, you might get out if you just be yourself.
So
And
what was the period of time between that conversation that you had with the guy that you had opposing riot, the riots with, and then the talk with the commissioner? How
that's
long?
interesting. The riot happened July the 1st, and I remember these dates. The riot happened July the 1st, and I had to talk. I had to talk with the gentleman the 16th of July, and I had the conversation with my commissioner that December. So it was kind of like this again, signs. I'm awakening things in me. I'm looking at things differently, and then it's just this guy comes and goes, "Hey, you. In other words, you're on the right track if if you're if you're willing." But that that wasn't good enough for me. That was that was unbelievable. I didn't believe in myself. I didn't believe I could do it. I I wondered what the fellas were gonna say if I started behaving right. Um, and so I went into this battle within myself. This very strange battle happened to where I would look at myself as a child that made me, that raised me the best that he could, with his assumption and his guessing that got me where I'm at that time. And then there was the adult me, the one that was thinking right, the one that was wanting better. And so this battle ensued between me and my younger self, and that younger self was calling me a betrayer, a weakling. How can you do this? Like, and then I would just come back with like, hey, like I'm gonna take care of us, and this went on for days and days in my cell, and then finally I came up with a compromise um, with myself, and I decided that I was gonna take over. I decided that the grown me was gonna take over, and I didn't know exactly how. And the only thing that I had at that time after my self-evaluation was that I could speak English and Spanish fluently, and that went into going into the school education department and volunteering. And I volunteered, and I became a translator, and I became a tutor, and I did that to get away from the yard. I did that to get away from people. I did that to get away to change my environment, and that took off. I excelled. I was recognized by my boss, and I got like three job changes that required more and more responsibility, and uh, um, I was able to produce, and now I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good because I'm helping out people. I'm being productive, and so I start matching a lot of things. I start matching that feeling with the feeling that I used to get when I was in the gang, and it's a similar feeling, except that that feeling with the gang was counterfeit self-esteem, and now I'm getting the real deal. This is the real deal because I'm helping um to these guys that I'm tutoring, and their teacher. And after that, I started exercising that, and I became that. And at first, it was hard. I was questioning myself, but then with practice, you get comfortable. And after a little bit, that's just who I was. I gained a new identity, and that's how I was able to 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 keep positive in prison.
So you're doing all this great stuff. You're volunteering, within the school. And then you're basically getting promoted, which gives you like, more accolades, more freedom, right? To be able to
Right.
do different things, allows you more movement within the facility. Um, so then, how were you ultimately released? How hard was it, for you to get that, to get to that point?
I'm feeling good about myself, and really, really, really taking on this role. Um, it's a curious thing, and I will say that this will happen to everybody, and I know it's wrong to say that, but I'm convinced that when I stepped into this role, I felt good because I had found a purpose. So with that newfound purpose, things that I wanted or things that I coveted just started. I didn't stop wanting them. I just decided for them to be there, and if they were ever given to me, they were going to be given to me. And one of them was freedom. One of them was physical freedom. because at that time I felt that I had released myself. I released myself because I felt that I had tapped into my purpose, and tapping into that purpose gave me freedom.
Mhm.
And I went about it like that. I went about it like that with my daily purpose. And did I like being in prison? Of course not. But I knew that if I was ever gonna be out of prison, it was just by me doing and fulfilling my purpose. Um, and so that's what I did. I just continued doing the right thing. Um, at first, it was hard, not because of the fella. Surprisingly, like I thought it was gonna be hard. It was hard because of myself. It was hard because I didn't identify what a rule was. It was hard for me because um, I didn't realize that a rule is a rule, no matter how small, how big. It is against the rules to break a razor and use the blade to cut your paper or to sharpen your pencil. It is not against the rule to sharpen your pencil, of course, and it is not against the rules to cut paper, but it is against the rule to break a razor.
Hmm.
And so little things like that I would just disregard, and then I started thinking like, wait, like I cannot partake in breaking those small rules because that's going to lead me to break more rules and more rules, and so it's going to be a cycle. So I paid attention to myself, and
Sounds like you were being intentional with your actions.
right, right, and so with that, I started becoming not a square. You see how I still resist? I still resist, and not a square, but I started becoming your typical person um, that follows the rules. Um, and the more I did that, the easier it became. And then I wouldn't have to worry about that. And that doesn't mean that there's just other ways to accomplish what you want to accomplish besides, uh, busting a razor blade open, or having a drink or what have you. Um, I started learning um, delayed gratification. Um, I started learning empathy, and when I started learning that you start surrounding yourself with different people because that's what you're attracting. And so I started attracting different uh, guys that were talking in positive. And so I started getting invited to self-help groups. One of them that helped me a lot was a group that needs to be out here. If it's not, it's called Celebrate Recovery. And what Celebrate Recovery is a spiritual 12-step group where um, habits and hangups are addressed. And I really delved into that group. Um, Also, Gang Members Anonymous, CGA was instrumental in my recovery, in that it helped me figure out and find out why my appeal to gangs. Why was I so pulled to that gang lifestyle? And it's also a 12-step group, but it addresses your behavior, our behavior. Um, Another group that I took advantage of towards the end of my sentence was L-Top. I don't think they have it any longer, and I think they don't have it any longer because it works. It works so well. It's a long-term offender program. That's what L-Top stands for. And so what L-Top was is a cognitive treatment. It's a cognitive behavioral treatment, and that helped me understand my thinking process, and where um, the chain of thought, where everything starts with the thought, and then you become obsessed by it, and then you compulsively act on it, and then breaking that chain, breaking that chain from the thought to the action and thinking about the consequences. And that group helped me out a lot. It was a program, actually. It was for all lifers, LTOP. Um, but I took advantage of those those groups, and they made sense. They started making sense, and then I started looking into the 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 errors that not I only did, but the errors that those around me did, and then I also learned to forgive them for their errors, and then I ultimately forgave me.
Hmm. So, um, did you have to go to the board to get ultimately for you to get released?
So yes, I went to the board. I went to the board 3 times. The first time I went to the board was in 2018, and there were a couple of things still. I was shortly removed from criminal activity and criminal acts due to that 2015 incident, and so that was an automatic denial. And I knew it, and of course, like I said, I wanted to leave prison, but I was already free, or I felt free, and I felt like, okay, if I continue with what I'm doing, it's only I cannot be denied, eventually. And so I went again in 2019, and I also got denied, and that was very discouraging. But then again, I fell back on me having found myself. And something curious, when lifers get ready for board, we talk with each other, or we shoot questions, potential board questions to each other. And one time, one of my friends in that practice, he asked me a question, a potential board question, and he said, "What's freedom to you?" And so I didn't think about it that long, and I said, freedom, it's the absence of feeling that you need to break the law. So once you're good with that, then I felt I became free. And
So, in other words, basically, you feel like the freedom was the freedom to make good choices, right? You were no
right,
longer worried about you having a tendency, due to the way you grew up, the environment you were in, you had a tendency to make the bad choices because you didn't know anything else. Now the
right,
freedom to you was is that you could make those
that
choices.
I have those choices. I am the ultimate decision maker. And so with that also came again, my authority stance was very prevalent in my younger days. But now with that, I saw that I was not an equal, but I was not an equal in as society would see it, but I was equal to the deputies in that I'm also a man,
Mhm.
and it just so happens that I'm incarcerated, but I took on a stance that I wasn't going to be below them, but I was going to talk to them as what they deserved, and they deserve respect, and so do I. So
Mhm.
I went on with that attitude of respecting authority in that way, but in also and sometimes even demanding their respect. If I'm not doing anything wrong, then there shouldn't be a reason why they should act a certain way. Um, and in my youth, I was very anti-authority, but when I awoke to that, then there has to be a mutual respect. and I have moved on with that mutual respect since, and it's worked so far. It's worked like it should.
So then tell me at that moment, you're at the board for the third time and they grant the request. How are you feeling? What's like rushing over you? Like,
Um, at that moment, um, when they granted me parole, and I was, it's kind of like an outer body experience. I was waiting to see what I felt next, and then I didn't feel anything. I just felt, um, kind of like a quiet before a storm comes. So I felt
mhm.
like a bubble around me, and I just waited to feel something. And I was, of course, I knew and I made sense of it, but I couldn't. My mind couldn't reach to plans and dreams because they had been put aside and even smashed, for a long time. And so at that moment, to revive certain dreams, I didn't have the time or the mental bandwidth to do that. So I was just happy and just waiting to see what would happen next. I remember I went out, to to the officers when I got my date, and I was going back to the yard, and I said, hey, I just got a date. Can I get a phone call to call my people? And I called my brother, and it hit me when I said it out with my words. He answered and he goes, "Hey, what happened?" Everybody knew that was the date. He goes, "Hey, what happened?" And I said, "You're gonna have to come for me because they're letting me go. I got granted parole." And when I said that is when
It
I
all hit
felt
you.
everything, like wow. And I had to be quiet and then like listen to the words over, and I repeated in my head over and over, and it was uh it was surreal, and I started daydreaming, and I had to put a stop to that because I didn't know what this would look like. And yeah, it was a flood of emotions.
So you're happy, you're getting out, you got your date, but then it comes time you're out. Are you scared? Like scared of like, hey, now like because you've been incarcerated for how long at that point in time?
At that time, I had been incarcerated for 23 years, and at that time, I get out, and I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how the world had moved on, and I'm scared. Yeah, but most of all, I'm excited. I'm excited, and I'm scared because I don't know what
What to
me
expect?
me being successful means. I'm scared because I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get a job. Am I gonna excel? Is this prison thing gonna follow me everywhere I go?
Mhm.
Um, that's what I'm scared of. I'm scared of being have been gone so long. But at the same time, I'm excited. I'm taking everything in. Everything is new. Everything is fresh. Everything is wonderful. I think people around me were got tired of me like real quick because I was so excited. I was so excited to begin my day. Yeah.
So um so what was like, so the conditions of parole, you have to be like productive and you have to like do this, you have to do that, right? What was it like when you got out? Like what was like the first like kind of thing that you checked off to be like productive? Was that, did you just automatically try to get connected with a school like where you were, like wherever you were at, like in the community?
Uh, so no, because when I got out, I was um I was still going to school. I was still taking long distance courses. So when I got out, I made arrangement with the school that I was with, and so I continued doing that with them for maybe another month. Um, and then the semester ended. So then after that, I knew that it was gonna be either move forward with school or work. I had gotten a job at demolition, breaking up concrete and digging ditches, hard work. And I finished my semester, and I had to make up my mind: am I going to continue with education, or am I going to just look for jobs? And um, again, here comes things that took care of me. I get a call from Project Rebound. I get a call from Project Rebound, and one of the counselors there um, remembered me, um, and they knew I was getting out, and they reached out, and he said, "Hey, what are you gonna do now?" And it just so happened my semester's ending, and I just say, "Hey, my semester's ending. I think I need another class." And he said, "Come on in, and we'll figure this out." So I went in, and education has always just showed up, or I don't know if I'm the one that has showed up to education, but education, it has been in my life in untraditional ways. But I reached out, and I um, signed up, and um, became part of Project Rebound. I became a Project Rebound student. Actually, they had to wait for me. I still needed like two or three classes for as transfer credits. So I had to go to El Camino. They hooked me up with El Camino, and waited me for a semester, and then I was able to transfer. And um, yeah, I took full advantage of Project Rebound, and I I I worried a lot when I got out of prison, because, as it was mentioned earlier, by you, and I appreciate you picking up on that, because it's very important in my life, that the community, the sense of community that I have always been looking for, um, since being a child. And at that time, I didn't know how to choose my community. My loyalty was misplaced, and I understand one thing about me is that community is very important to me, and so the gangs were my community, and that hurt my life uh, in a tragic ways. And I was worried when I got out here, because I needed community. I knew that about myself. So I didn't know how it was going to be if I went back to my neighborhood, or what community was going to be available to me. So I appreciate education. I appreciate academia, especially Project Rebound, for making that community available.
And it being a positive influence, a positive community
Right.
for you.
Yeah.
Where
Now it's
before,
positive. Right.
so you're on probation, you're doing good, you've chosen school, right? So you've chosen to figure out, what is that's the next step for you, right? Continuing that education, continuing that positive influence, that positive community within your life. Did you know what you wanted to do, or were you still trying to figure it out and you were just trying to finish your courses at that point just so you could transfer?
I knew that I knew that I wanted to help people, because that's when I volunteered in prison, and my purpose got woken. I knew I wanted to help people. Um, when I came out of prison, I would remember a lot of there's a lot of mental health, undiagnosed mental health in prison, a lot, me included, and a lot of those guys aren't getting the help that they need. So I come with that, and I also come with the sufferment that people go through that have their loved ones in prison. So I knew I wanted to help people, and I want to help people in in a higher capacity than just translating. I want to help people in making sense of things, or or reaching their own personal goals. And so that's why I chose to major in human services, and then graduate in 2 semesters, and pursue a master's degree in counseling.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So was it just basically Project Rebound that helped connect you to resources, or was your parole agent, were they helpful? Were they also trying to figure out how they could support you?
And again, my approach, my new approach that I found after me being finding myself, is that, mutual respect. So when I got out, understandably, my parole officer um, has a big caseload. So he doesn't know me. He has never met me. He doesn't know who I am. He doesn't know what I'm thinking. He doesn't know about that mutual respect that I want to approach him with. Um, so so I didn't know what kind of relationship was going to happen, right? I heard horror stories about parole officers, so I'm thinking, like, is this guy gonna be on my back? Is he so? But when I met him, again, I approached him with that mutual respect, and it shows. It shows if the person is willing to make a cool relationship or not. And I appreciated him reciprocating that mutual respect. And I he gave me liberty in that he um he wasn't on me. And again, different parolees require
Yeah.
different things, right? And but he I believe that me demonstrating to him that there was going to be a mutual respect happening, that was going to be communication happening, that he didn't need to be on me, and I appreciate that from him. um and he just made himself available. He gave me pamphlets of resources, and any question you have, just ask. And I appreciate that of him making himself available. And I was still living, even though he would give me my space. And I pro to a transition house. So my commitment was to that house for 6 months. I had a curfew. um I got out, it was around Christmas time, and I wanted to spend time with my family. And he wasn't on me, like I said. Of course, we went through the parole conditions, drug testing, visits, and all that. Um, but Christmas was coming around, and I really, really wanted to spend Christmas with my family. I haven't spent Christmas with my family in decades. Ran this idea of I'm just gonna go down there and not make curfew and just spend the night for Christmas. Um, but I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad that he made himself available in the way to where I felt comfortable enough to ask him, hey, can I spend the night at my family's house? I'm gonna just spend Christmas. And he did. He granted that. He took that to his channels, and he granted that. And so the leniency or so that he was giving me, I could have just spent the night, right? But there goes this thing that I have to uphold, my integrity. I have to uphold. I have to uphold my integrity. If just because I think that I could get away with this doesn't mean that I'm gonna get away with it. Plus, I have to give this man and due respect. If I'm asking for that respect, then I have to give him that respect, right? And a lot of times, it seems easy to um, get away or get over on a parole officer, but it's really not. It's really getting over on myself. If I would have, quote unquote, gotten over on him, So I
So
think his
you're risking being violated, right, by
right,
doing that?
right. So you're risking, yeah. So it's kind of, it's dumb, actually. It's a very dumb thing to do. We have grown, we have made it this far, and then to put ourselves in jeopardy just isn't conducive. It's not, so again, his willingness and being open with that helped me out in battling that little instinct of like, oh, I could get away with this even if it's insignificant.
Yeah, and because you had established that trust with him, because you are doing everything you're supposed to do,
Right,
there was no reason for him not to grant that, right?
right,
Unless there was like him himself, like I'm sure he was kind of like, oh yeah, I would love to, but let me go through the proper channels. And
right,
then that where that decision wouldn't be made up, not by him, but someone else, but at least you knew that in your mind, hey, I'm going to ask for it. I'm going to advocate for myself
right,
and see if it's possible. And
right,
it was. And I'm sure that that made you feel like, wow, like he has my back, right?
right,
Regardless of his job, right? Of, him being law enforcement and you being, he's parole, you're a parolee, right? You had demonstrated that and continued to build that trust and
right,
that respect.
right.
So
And it's a relationship, after all. It is a relationship. And um I'm a master at I'm a master of beating myself down, right? So it's just like I'm a master of beating myself down. I'm a when those things come about, I have these thoughts, to where well, they're the cops. I'm different, and they're not gonna go for that. But actually, that goes with the set of my previous self, that my old self. Um, and now it's time to approach things with respect and maturity, to where if I'm not doing anything wrong, and then I shouldn't be denied, what's right. And again, um, he was happy to give that. He was happy because we're working on this together. And
and he
but just
knew that you spending Christmas with your family meant something to you.
right, right. And so we have to be aware. I had to be aware of this mentality that I could default back on, and bring it back to, like, no, wait a minute, like, this is we're working on getting off of parole. And with that, this guy has demonstrated that he's helping me out, and so we have to take advantage of that help.
So basically what I'm hearing is, since you're, even while you're incarcerated, right, you're trying to go to the board, you finally third time, you get, released, you're on parole, you're continually making good choices, right? So the key here
Right,
is that you're continually making good choices. And each time you're making these good choices, you're reaping the benefits. So is
right.
that what keeps you from making, the good choices that you're trying to make, even if maybe at that moment sometimes you're not actually benefiting from it in some respect, but in the long run, that you're going to be, benefiting from it?
So yes, absolutely, absolutely. When I'm moving forward and I'm making decisions, and I remember in prison when I made the first decision, I remember what decision it was, but I denied something, or I said no to something, or I don't remember exactly what it is, but I do remember thinking to myself, holy shit, the more that I chose right, the more benefits that came with that. And I would not trade, let's say, for instance, my mom's trust for anything. So again, that's just one of the relationships that needs to start when I got out here. My mom knew the 21-year-old liar that would go off into the streets and come back 3 days later. So I had to rebuild that relationship, and that's just one example of many. Like a relationship with my boss, a relationship with my parole officer, a relationship with my siblings. Um, the more right decisions that I do, the more that I'm gonna get, and the easier it's gonna be. So yes, absolutely, it's one of the things that keeps me on the right track, because I would hate to for my mom, or one of my loved ones, or you, or somebody that has trusted me, to double think that trust that they have placed on me.
Well, what about yourself though? Aren't you trying to make the right decision for yourself at the same time? Because you know that ultimately you're the one that is really going to benefit from that. So it's not just about, yes, you want to make the right decisions for other people in your life, people that mean something to you, right? Or someone that can have a positive or negative effect in your life. But isn't that also you? Like showing yourself, right? That you can continually make that good decision for yourself, and that you're not having to let someone else make that decision for you. You have the power to do that.
Right, and that goes along with me taking control of my identity, with me
Mhm.
being me. Like I stated earlier, I got my identity from the gang, and now I have taken back my identity. Now I have control of myself. Now I'm able to make decisions for myself. Now I'm going to school, I'm working, because those are my decisions, and those are the decisions that give me my self-esteem. And so I get self-esteem from being purposeful in achieving the goals that I have set out for myself. And the reward of that is priceless. um, I'm not going to ever go back to prison, and I could say that with confidence, because that's just who I've become. And um, and um, I by going and accomplishing myself, I I reinforce that I validate myself, and that makes me more stern in my path. And like I said earlier, with practice we get onto this, we grow this stance to where nothing could touch us after us. I mean, we're not untouchable, but maybe that's the wrong thing to say, because I
It's a
do
habit.
believe it. Excuse me.
Making the right choice becomes a habit. Practicing and doing things becomes a habit.
And then that's what you become. I'm a student right now. That's what identifies me. I'm a hard working student, that is helpful, and that has a purpose, and that's my identity now.
And you
and
want to
I
give back to the community.
and I stepped into that, and that's who I am. And the more I do it, the more that I'm satisfied with myself. So
And
that,
you live that life, right? So you're not just saying that you identify, you're not just saying those things, that you're actually doing it. So you're
right,
reinforcing those things.
right,
And making
exactly. And that's how I keep on the right track, by fortifying that stance.
So I have two more questions for you. I really appreciate your time. So what would you say to someone who's currently at a crossroads in their life, where they're feeling like they really only have the life of crime, poverty, you know, do you feel like they should know that there is that third option of being able to look beyond the life of crime, look beyond the life of poverty?
So since I've been there, I know that thoughts occur, and questions come up, and it's okay. I would tell the person that it's okay. It's okay to come up with questions, and explore. And if you're not ready at that time, then that's okay also. Um, that's okay. But if you take a chance on yourself, you will not regret it. I I say that from experience. It took me a while for me to work up the courage to take a chance on myself, and it took a long time for me to work up the courage to believe in myself. But now that I am committed to myself, there's nothing stopping me. There's nothing that's gonna stop me. And it is scary at the front. It is scary at the beginning. Um, but once we get through that fear, we discover who we really are, and that's priceless.
So some individuals that are going to be watching this video, they may be incarcerated. So, outside of hearing your amazing story and the journey that you had, like, what would be something that you want to leave them with, something that can give them that hope that they don't, that outside of, like, hey, I'm here, right? Should I make the best of it? Should I just continue on the path? Like, what would be something that you felt like you wish someone would have said to you, maybe while you were incarcerated, that would have maybe changed your mind, or maybe set you on a different path, maybe earlier on?
Yeah. So in prison, like in prison, there's a lot of dark days, and there's solitude, and you don't see what's going outside of those walls. So what I would say to that, to those people that are in prison right now, is that there's a lot of us that have come from inside of prison and are out here fighting for spaces for you. And I didn't realize that until I got out. I didn't know that there was so many resources and so much help out here. Because again, I was just looking at the world through a people in my wall. But just know that there are some of us out here that haven't forgotten you, and that we are out here. We're making spaces for you. So your seat is at the table also, and that's what I want to leave them with.
Thank you. That is very well said, and I think that that'll resonate, with anyone, you know, who watches this, that they're able to, be inspired, get some hope that, even someone like yourself who had two life sentences with an additional 17 years, right? That laws can change, right? What can also change is our behavior, right? And the impact that individuals have, and that how you do your time can be important when that day comes where maybe you're going to go to the board. What are you going to do? Or doing your time in a way in which makes you feel good about yourself, right? Instead of
Right.
just, being with the fellas and following the script, right? That the script that kind of got you there. So
Mm-hmm.
being different isn't
Right.
always a bad thing, right?
Right. Right. And the thing that I also would want them to know is that since it affected me a lot, people starting with the teacher told me that I was dumb, and I got name called, and I believed it. And you know what? Come to find out, I'm not dumb. I'm amazing. I'm amazing, and I could say that because I now have self love. So, um, you're amazing. If you're in prison, there's something amazing about you. We just need to find it. We just have to believe that it is. We've been given a bad name. We've been given a bad name. People don't understand us. People don't know our learning style, our communication style. So then they don't want to spend the time with us. But we're amazing. We do amazing things, and I have since never thought I was gonna get out. Like maybe some of the people in prison are thinking that they will never get out. I was one of them. I never thought I was gonna get out, but I made it out, and like I said, believe in yourself. Believe that you're amazing.
Well, thank you so much, Albert. I really appreciate your time, and really, again, appreciate you creating this space for other people by sharing your story. So